Sweden is so clean that it imports waste from other countries to produce energy. Yet it is also home to fermented herring, with an odor so powerful that many people only dare to open the can outdoors. Time. In modern Stockholm, trains run with remarkable precision, cash is rarely needed, and everything appears perfectly organized. Just a few hours later, glass buildings give way to pine forests, frozen lakes, and red wooden houses surrounded by snow time. This is Sweden, a country where modern order exists beside untamed nature. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment telling us what makes you most curious about Sweden. Sweden, a land of peace and wilderness. Welcome to Sweden, where modern life does not push nature away, but learns to exist beside it. From the very first moment, this country feels so peaceful that it almost seems unreal. In Stockholm, trains enter spotless stations exactly on time, people buy coffee with a single tap of their phones, and office windows reflect across the water. Inside small cafes, the scent of warm cinnamon buns fills spaces designed around natural light and silence. But only a few hours beyond the city, that polished world begins to disappear. Glass buildings give way to pine forests, smooth streets become snow-covered trails, and red wooden houses stand quietly beside frozen lakes. Reindeer tracks cross the white landscape, and farther north, the northern lights may appear like green flames across the night sky. That is what makes Sweden different. Modern life here does not replace nature. It learns to live alongside it. On the map, Sweden covers about 174,000 square miles, making it nearly the size of California, but with far fewer people. Its population is around 10.6 million, creating the feeling of a small community living on a vast northern stage. Open spaces, clean air, distant views, and a silence that stretches far beyond the road are often felt by visitors before they can find the words to describe them. Here, nature is not simply a backdrop. Nature is the very heart of the country. When summer arrives, the light seems unwilling to leave. The sun hangs low, turning lakes golden and transforming forests into endless corridors of light. By winter, the same land becomes colder and more mysterious. Snow softens every sound, frozen lakes become silver plains, and the sharp air seems to awaken every sense. But Sweden is not only beautiful, the country also possesses remarkable economic strength. According to the International Monetary Fund's forecast for 2026, its nominal gross domestic product is expected to reach approximately $760 billion, while the World Bank's latest available figure for 2024 was about $637 billion. For a country with just over 10 million people, that scale is impressive. Volvo, IKEA, Spotify, H&M, and Minecraft all carry a Swedish identity. Even the three-point seatbelt, introduced by Volvo in 1959, originated here and has helped save millions of lives around the world. Behind that success is the spirit of Jantelagen. It is not an official law, but a familiar social principle. Do not boast, do not act superior, maintain balance, respect the group, and allow results to speak louder than personal pride. Perhaps this is why Sweden can create global companies while preserving its love for forests, build clean cities without forgetting frozen lakes, and embrace technology without losing its sense of calm. Keep this image in mind as the journey begins. A cashless cafe in Stockholm, a train gliding through the city, a red house beside a snowy forest, a lake reflecting the northern sky, and somewhere farther away, the wilderness still waiting. This is Sweden, where order meets the untamed natural world, when personal space becomes respect. If you move to Sweden, The first thing that surprises you may not be the cold, but the silence. In many places, people rush to fill every quiet moment with questions, greetings, or casual conversation. But in Sweden, silence is not considered awkward. It is a natural part of daily life, and also a way of showing respect. On a bus in Stockholm or Gothenburg, passengers usually choose to sit alone when seats are available. They look out the window, listen to music, or read instead of trying to start a conversation. If someone sits beside you when the bus is crowded and moves to another seat once one becomes available, it is not meant as an insult. They are simply returning to the personal space where they feel most comfortable. In conversation, Swedish people are often direct, but they do not usually display strong emotions openly. They may not ask many questions when meeting someone for the first time, offer compliments merely to appear polite, or quickly invite others into their private lives. To outsiders, this behavior can sometimes feel cold. However, politeness here often means not standing too close, not asking personal questions too soon, and not disturbing another person's peace. Friendships also develop more slowly. Many social gatherings are arranged weeks in advance, and visiting someone's home without notice may be seen as crossing a personal boundary. Then fika appears as a warm opening within this reserved way of life. Fika is not simply a coffee break. It is a moment when people step away from work, sit together, and enjoy something sweet. Usually a cinnamon bun. In offices, computers are closed, shoulders relax, and people who remained quiet all morning begin to talk. Fika is a reminder that life is not only about deadlines and productivity. Sometimes, the most important thing is simply slowing down beside another person. Another feature of Swedish culture is precision. People may say that their winter break begins in week 46, instead of vaguely saying late November. When describing an apartment, they may immediately state that it measures about 420 square feet. A personal identification number contains 10 digits and is used for healthcare, banking, and many official procedures. Even the words for grandparents clearly show whether they are from the mother's or father's side. More means the mother's mother. Morfar means the mother's father. Farmor means the father's mother. And farfar means the father's father. The spirit of lagom is also present in everyday life. This idea means not too much, not too little, but just enough. You can see lagom in a simple apartment, a quiet dinner, a balanced workday, or a conversation where no one tries to claim all the attention. It is a way of living with moderation and without showing off. Yet behind these boundaries is a remarkably broad freedom known as allemansrätten. It is a familiar part of everyday life. This public right of access allows people to walk, ski, camp, and explore much of the countryside, as long as they do not enter private homes or damage the natural environment. For this reason, Sweden may seem difficult to understand at first, but the longer you observe, the more clearly its order begins to appear. Behind the silence is respect. Behind the distance is trust. And behind the rules is freedom. Sweden's system for turning waste into warmth. Beyond its clean cities and peaceful forests, Sweden has a far less glamorous story to tell: waste. It may seem difficult to believe that a country known for clean air and environmental awareness imports waste from abroad. The reason is not that Swedish people produce too little waste, but that the country has developed a system that transforms discarded material into a new resource. In many places, waste reaches the end of its useful life the moment it is thrown into a bin. In Sweden, that is often only the beginning. Waste can become heat for homes, electricity for cities, biogas for vehicles, fertilizer for farms, or raw material for new products. In 2023, the country processed about 4.5 million short tons of household waste, equal to nearly 864 pounds per person. Around 39% was recycled, while almost 59% was converted into energy. Inside apartment communities, residents separate paper, plastic, metal, glass, food waste, batteries, and even old light bulbs. Children learn early that banana peels, plastic bottles, and newspapers do not belong in the same container. Sorting waste is not viewed as an extraordinary environmental action. It is simply part of everyday life. At supermarkets, people place bottles and cans into return machines and receive a small refund. If a bottle is crushed too severely, the machine may reject it time, freezes, almost like a polite reminder that everything must be handled correctly. Beneath Stockholm and Gothenburg, some neighborhoods also use vacuum-powered pipes to carry waste to collection points. Above ground, sidewalks remain clean and quiet. Below the surface, waste moves through the city like an invisible current. Waste-to-energy plants operate so efficiently that domestic waste is sometimes not enough to meet demand. By 2024, Sweden was importing about 4.25 million short tons of waste across its borders to continue producing heat and electricity. During the long winter, this system becomes especially important. Heat travels through pipelines to homes, schools, hospitals, and apartment buildings. A piece of packaging might remain in a landfill for years somewhere else. But in Sweden, it may help keep a family warm on a freezing January night. Imagine snow covering the sidewalks, the air sharp with cold, and golden light glowing from the windows above. Inside, children complete their homework, while radiators quietly release warmth. Time, children complete, and part of that heat may have begun as waste. However, the system is not perfect. Burning waste still produces emissions, although the plants use modern filtration systems and operate under strict environmental regulations. If society depends too heavily on waste as fuel, it may also lose some motivation to reduce consumption. The real story, therefore, is not that Sweden recycles everything. It is that the country manages waste through technology, discipline, culture, and law. Food scraps become biogas, paper becomes new paper, metal is melted down, bottles earn refunds, and unused medicine is returned to pharmacies. What stands out most is that Sweden does not merely ask people to care about the environment. It builds systems that make responsible behavior easy. In many places, waste marks the end of the process. In Sweden, it can become the beginning of electricity, warmth, and an entirely new life cycle for the whole community. Sweden's most courage-testing flavors. Swedish cuisine does not make its first impression through intense spice, vivid colors, or heavy smoke. At first, it may seem gentle, practical, and understated, much like the rhythm of life in this country. But behind its spotless kitchens, warm cafes, and family dining tables lies a world of surprisingly unusual food. Some dishes bring comfort during a winter night, while others make even adventurous travelers hesitate before taking the first bite. To understand them, you must first understand the land that created them. For many generations, Swedish people lived through long winters, cold seas, deep forests, and short growing seasons. Fish was salted, meat was preserved, bread was dried, berries were stored, and potatoes became an essential food. Nothing could be wasted, because in the northern climate, food did more than provide pleasure, it helped people survive the cold. Perhaps the most familiar dish is köttbullar, small meatballs served with cream sauce, mashed potatoes, pickled cucumber, and lingonberry jam. The salty, rich, and slightly tart flavors come together like a warm dinner inside a wooden house surrounded by snowy forests. Lingonberries are small, red, and sour, and they often appear beside meatballs, pancakes, pork, and even blood pudding. This blood pudding is made from pig's blood, rye flour, syrup, and spices before being sliced and fried until crisp. To outsiders, it may feel heavy, but for many Swedish people, it is a childhood dish and a familiar school lunch. Lutefisk is even stranger. Dried white fish is treated with an alkaline solution and then soaked until it becomes soft, pale, and almost jelly-like. Its delicate, trembling texture on the plate makes many people curious, but also cautious. It is often served during the holiday season with potatoes, peas, and white sauce, preserving the memory of a time when people had to use every possible method to keep food through the winter. Smörgåstårta plays a visual trick. From the outside, it looks like a frosted cake. Once sliced, however, it reveals layers of bread, shrimp, salmon, eggs, mayonnaise, cucumber, and cold cuts. It is a savory party dish disguised as a dessert. Then comes surströmming, fermented Baltic herring, and the dish most famous for its smell. Fermentation continues even after the fish is sealed inside the can, causing the metal container to swell. Because of its powerful sour odor, many people open it only outdoors, far away from curtains and carpets. Yet when eaten properly with thin bread, potatoes, onions, and sour cream, it becomes more than a test of courage. It becomes a summer ritual and a piece of cultural memory. More approachable dishes include rörakor, golden fried potato pancakes served with pork and lingonberries, gravlax, salmon cured with salt, sugar, and dill, prinsesstårta, made with sponge cake, cream, jam, and a pale green marzipan covering, semla, a cardamom bun filled with almond paste and whipped cream, and knäckebröd, a crisp bread created to last a long time and travel over great distances. So when you taste Sweden, you are not simply experiencing a collection of flavors. You encounter sweetness served beside meat, fish that tests your courage, a cake that is not sweet at all, and bread that cracks like breaking ice. The cuisine carries memories of deep forests, cold seas, wooden kitchens, and years of survival. Sometimes, the strangest bite tells the clearest story about the people who created it. Every new journey can only begin when there are people who truly want to travel with us. By subscribing right now, you are helping us continue searching for more remarkable stories from around the world. Thank you for becoming part of this journey. Swedish habits that surprise visitors. At first glance, Sweden appears peaceful, exceptionally clean, and highly organized. Buses move quietly. People wait in orderly lines, maintain personal space, and avoid disturbing others. But once you enter a home, a cafe, or a summer cottage, you begin to realize that these seemingly unusual customs reflect a society built around trust, equality, and responsibility. Start with children. On July 1, 1979, Sweden became the first country in the world to prohibit all forms of corporal punishment against children. Parenting is based on conversation, patience, and an understanding of emotions. You may see parents kneel to meet their child at eye level and speak calmly instead of shouting. This reflects the belief that children are not possessions, but individuals learning how to live alongside others. Then comes lördagsgodis, the tradition of eating candy on Saturdays. Rather than allowing children to eat sweets every day, many families reserve candy for this one day of the week. The idea began with concerns about sugar and tooth decay, then gradually became a cheerful weekly ritual. On Saturdays, supermarket candy sections fill with children carefully selecting each piece as though they were choosing treasure. Even with this custom, annual consumption remains around 36 pounds per person. Sweden does not always forbid pleasure. It simply gives pleasure a clear place and time. At the entrance to a Swedish home, you will encounter another rule: remove your shoes. Snow, rain, mud, and gravel mean footwear is usually left near the door. Walking into the living room with dirty shoes may fill the room with silent discomfort. No one needs to raise their voice because the message is already clear. The outside world should stop at the doorway. Inside, there are socks, wooden floors, warm lighting, and a clean living space. Inside cafes, self-service is also common. You collect your own water and napkins, and sometimes return your tray after finishing. This reflects a simple principle: do not create unnecessary work for others, and take responsibility for your own part. Politeness here also means not asking personal questions too soon, not interrupting moments of silence, and not taking up more space than necessary. Even dancing was once closely regulated. Some venues that wanted to allow public dancing had to apply for a special permit. In January 2023, the old requirement was replaced by a simpler registration system. The story may sound difficult to believe, but it shows how far the desire for order once extended even onto the dance floor. In friendships, Swedish people are often reserved at first. They may not quickly invite a new acquaintance into their home or ask deeply personal questions. But once trust develops, the relationship is usually strong and dependable. In saunas, changing rooms, and summer swimming areas, the human body is also often treated more naturally and is not automatically viewed in a sexual way. Then there is Swedengate, the widely shared story claiming that visiting children were sometimes not invited to stay for dinner. In reality, some families assumed that the child would return home to eat with their own family, so they avoided disrupting another household's schedule. To outsiders, this may appear cold. Within the Swedish context, however, it is connected to personal boundaries and respect. The more you observe, the more clearly you understand that these habits are not random. They reflect a culture where discipline, fairness, and responsibility are expressed through quiet, everyday rules. The high cost of living in Sweden. Beyond the snowy forests, quiet bus rides, and promise of a safe life, the thing that surprises many people most is the price of living. This country is clean, orderly, and dependable, but it is far from inexpensive. The first shock often comes from housing. In central Stockholm, a one-bedroom apartment can cost around $1,600 per month. In return, you live close to the water and have convenient access to public transportation. However, housing demand is high. Residents may remain on rental waiting lists for a long time, and newcomers must compete to find a suitable place. Gothenburg and Malmö are slightly more affordable, but they are still not cheap. When it comes to food, cooking at home is usually the smartest choice. A shopping basket containing bread, cheese, eggs, potatoes, vegetables, fish, milk, and coffee may look ordinary, but the final bill often forces shoppers to calculate their spending carefully. Eating out is where the budget begins to rise quickly. A simple lunch or a few visits to a bar can create a much larger expense than expected. Fika with coffee and a cinnamon bun is still worth enjoying, but eating every meal at a restaurant will teach you to control your spending very quickly. Alcohol is also managed through the state-owned Systembolaget stores. Shoppers need to plan ahead because these stores follow specific opening hours. Enjoyment is not forbidden, but it is always organized. Public transportation offers a greater sense of balance. A monthly pass in Stockholm usually costs around $100 and covers buses, the subway, commuter trains, and some ferry routes. The price may seem high, but the clean and punctual system makes it feel more reasonable. Driving is more expensive because of fuel and parking costs, so many people choose to walk, cycle, or take the train. Other bills, including heating, electricity, water, and internet service, also add pressure, especially during the long winter. But this is where the story begins to change. Sweden asks people to pay more, while also returning more through public services. A standard doctor's visit may cost between $10 and $44. Annual outpatient healthcare costs are limited to around $138, while prescription medicine has a separate annual limit in 2026. This helps prevent a single illness from becoming a financial disaster. Taxes also support schools, subsidized childcare, libraries, parks, public transportation, and clean streets. So the real question is not only how much you pay, but what that money gives back. Safety, access to health care, more time for family, and less anxiety about tomorrow. To live comfortably, people often cook at home, bring lunch to work, buy second-hand items, ride bicycles, and limit expensive nights out. You may pay more for rent and daily expenses, but in return, you receive buses that arrive on time, accessible clinics, and a society that tries to support people before they fall too far. So if you dream of living here, do not picture only red wooden houses, snowy forests, and warm cafes. Picture the bills, the rent, and the weekend grocery basket as well. Then look again at the clean subway, dependable public services, and the apartment glowing with light during a winter night. For many people, Sweden's high cost of living does not purchase luxury. It purchases something far more difficult to measure: peace of mind. Sweden does not try to impress through noise. This country stays in people's memories through very small things: a train arriving on time, a quiet moment that makes no one uncomfortable, or candlelight appearing during the long winter. When leaving Sweden, people may forget the price of a meal or the name of a street, but it is difficult to forget the feeling of living in a society that is always preparing for tomorrow. Between the cold wilderness and rules that may seem strict, Sweden has created a way of life that feels calm, practical, and deeply dependable. Leave a comment telling us what you will remember most about this country, like the video, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next journey.